Hi, welcome back to the second part of Nationalism in India. For watching the previous part, please check the description box given below. In this part, I am going to brief you the Rowlatt Act, the Jallianwalabaghmassacre, the Khilafat Movement and the non-cooperation movement. The Rowlatt Act. The Indian freedom movement got a new dimension or a new outlook when Mahatma Gandhi took the leadership. The British government was much worried about the progress of the international movement. So they continued with their repressive and suppressive measures against the freedom fighters. The Rowlatt Act was just an example for the British government's suppressive measures. The Rowlatt Act was passed in 1919 through the Imperial Legislative Council despite the opposition of the Indian members in the council. One of the main aims of the Rowlatt Act was to suppress all kinds of political activities, and it allowed the British government the detention of political prisoners for 2 years without trial. Mahatma Gandhi had decided to launch a non-violent civil disobedience movement against the brutal Rowlatt Act, which would start with a hartal on 6th April. Inspired by the words of Mahatma Gandhi, rallies were conducted, especially in Indian cities. Workers went on strike and shops were closed down. And the British government continued with their oppressive measures against the freedom fighters. The local leaders were picked from Amritsar and Gandhi was banned from entering into Delhi. And on 10th April 1919, police started firing on a peaceful procession in Amritsar. There were widespread attacks on banks, post offices, railway stations, and all the major government offices against the brutal police firing. On 13th April, a large crowd gathered in the enclosed ground of Jallianwala Bagh to protest against the government's suppressive measures and the Rowlatt Act. And many innocent villagers were also gathered to attend the annual Baishakhi fair. The innocent villagers were not aware of the brutal laws of the British government. General Dyer entered the area, blocked the way, and opened fire. As a result of that, hundreds of people lost their life. This incident is known as the Jallianwala Bagh massacre. By hearing the news of Jallianwala Bagh massacre, crowd in large numbers gathered in the streets. There were strikes, clashes with the police, and widespread attacks were there on banks, post offices, railway stations, and the major government offices. The Khilafat movement. Even though Satyagraha was a widespread movement, it was limited only to cities and towns. Mahatma Gandhi wanted to make it as a popular movement. He also wanted that the Hindus and Muslims should be united in a single platform to fight against the mighty British government. So he wanted to take up the Khilafat issue as one of the national issues. During the First World War, Turkey and its allied powers were defeated, and there were rumors that harsh treaty was going to impose on the spiritual head of the Islamic world, Khalifa, who was the Ottoman emperor also. To defend the Khalifa's temporal power, a Khilafat committee was formed in Mumbai in 1919 under the leadership of brothers Shaukat Ali and Muhammad Ali. Shaukat Ali and Muhammad Ali made a discussion with Mahatma Gandhi for a united struggle on the issue. Mahatma Gandhi saw it an opportunity to fight under a united movement. So in the Calcutta session of the International Congress, Mahatma Gandhi convinced the other leaders to start a non-cooperation movement against the British government. The non-cooperation movement. The non-cooperation movement was a movement launched by Mahatma Gandhi for attaining Swaraj or complete independence. In his famous book, The Hindu Swaraj, Mahatma Gandhi had written, "The British rule was set up in India only with the cooperation of the Indians, and the British rule was surviving in India only with this cooperation. If the Indians were not ready to cooperate with the British government, they would be forced to leave the country, and so that the Indians would get Swaraj." Mahatma Gandhi decided to launch the non-cooperation movement in different phases. It had to start with the surrender of titles offered by the British government, boycott of civil service, army, police, court, legislative councils, schools, foreign goods, etc. And if the British government continued with their suppressive measures, the Indians would be forced to launch a full disobedience campaign against the British government. Mahatma Gandhi and Shaukat Ali decided to travel across the country for mobilizing popular support for the movement. During this time, there were differences of opinion about the proposals of the non-cooperation movement. Some of the International Congress leaders were not ready to boycott the council elections scheduled for November 1920. They feared that popular violence would be there across the country, and they also thought that the Indians could oppose the British government in the legislative councils. And between September and December 1920, these differences of opinion among the party leaders continued. Finally, at the Nagpur session of the International Congress, it was decided to launch the non-cooperation movement. On the basis of the decision taken in the Nagpur session of the International Congress, the non-cooperation movement and the Khilafat movement began on January 1921.